Welcome onto the last edition of Down. We're still talking the 2025 Comrades Marathon Down Run. My name is Brad Nadalt. We've got the coach, Lindsay Parry, with us once again. Lindsay, nice to touch base. We're talking last edition of Down, but that's because we're flicking the switch next week and we're going up as we head towards 2026. But still some things to unpack after this year's race.
Yeah, exactly, and largely to unpack your race. So we promised we'd do it, and yeah, we'll use your race and hopefully get some cool lessons in it for the down run in 2025, and just running Comrades in general, I think.
Yeah, Lindsay, that's exactly. I mean, we've had a lot of people asking. Obviously, we did the aches and pains party last week, Monday, and a lot of people were saying it was cool hearing a little bit about how my race went. But a lot of people were asking, can we do like a real debrief and how did it go? And I truthfully didn't want this to be just about me. I know a lot of people were tracking, and I really did feel the support out there on race day. But I wanted it to be like a learning opportunity for everyone, like looking at how do you take a race like Comrades and then sort of analyze it afterwards so that you can take what worked and what didn't into future races, not necessarily just Comrades, maybe it's other marathons, maybe it's other ultras. And that's what I wanted to do today. Obviously, I think there were lots of questions about why we cut it so fine, and I'm sure we'll get into that in today's podcast as well. But before we get into looking at my race, Lindsay, I have to ask, because I've been asked it and I'm sure you have, when can we start running again?
Yeah, so that is the question, and I've already chatted to a couple of people this week that I coach, and generally I basically make my clients wait until they get shrill and start demanding that I coach them. One of the funnier ones I've had, I remember after Shanae won the Comrades, and she phoned me because she'd seen one of her competitors was running, and she just started shouting at me that she needs to run again. And so that's always been my style, whether you're an elite athlete or whether you're a back of the packer. There's more than just physical damage that needs to heal here. Most people are starting to feel normal in terms of walking around, doing stairs, and they can do their activities of daily living. A few of them, a bit like you guys can probably hear um, that Brad's picked up a little bit of the sniffles, and that's very normal to get a bit sick afterwards. So while the physical stuff probably feels like it's getting to normal, if you went out for a run today, your legs wouldn't feel too flash. And so I really try to encourage people to do 2 weeks for the physical. But just like we all take a holiday from our jobs every year, and a week is not enough, you need more time to put distance between yourself and the mental effort that it took to both prepare for and to race Comrades. And so that's why I really try to go at least 2 weeks. I try and sneak in a third week, and I get it right with some. I don't get it right with others. But yeah, that would be my advice: is 2 weeks of absolutely no running, maybe getting in some gentle mobility, swimming, some very, very easy cycling if you get desperate. But the problem is if you start running next week, you'll probably feel physically good, but then 2 weeks later you suddenly run into a wall. It all catches up with you. So really do whatever you can to make this recovery 2 weeks.
Yeah, Lindsay, and I think the thing that surprised me most coming out of this year's Comrades, obviously I was sore, and I think everybody was. But the thing that's really surprised me is the amount of fatigue. Like, just I'm connected with a capital K. I mean, my legs by Friday were feeling decent again. I could go downstairs without holding on to anything by the end of the week. But I'm still like, just physically, I feel tired. And I guess the danger of training with this is you don't replenish that. But also when you're feeling that tired, and I think that's also probably why I've picked up a bit of a cold, is because your body takes a beating and you run down and your immune system's not coping. And if you just add on to that load, you're probably setting yourself up for more failure down the line.
100%. And just the physical, not physical, the mental toll that all of that has taken on you. And that fatigue you're feeling is also just the mental toll. So honestly, that's why if you try, when you get to the hard training you need to do for your next marathon or next ultra, whatever it is, you are going to struggle. So take the time, recuperate properly. Also, just try to enjoy this achievement. I mean, I think that's something that I'm always super guilty of. In fact, to the point where I'm often planning my next race even before I've done the
Finish
race
your
I'm training for. Um, so I think it's also just important to like take stock. Otherwise, you'll never enjoy anything, whether it was a good Comrades or a bad Comrades. If it was bad, you've got to process that. If it was good, you've got to process that. Because otherwise, no matter how good your performances are, you're never going to be satisfied with them, enjoy them, soak them up, learn from them. You just charge after the next thing, and then nothing will ever make you happy. And then that kind of sucks the joy out of the sport. So take stock, rest, and then get going again for your next target in effectively 2 weeks after race day. So in a week and a half time from now.
Cool. All right, Lindsay, I think let's jump into sort of breaking this thing down. And I'm going to hand the floor over to you. Obviously, I ask a lot of
Yeah.
questions on this podcast, but I know that you've done a lot of debriefs with some of your athletes that you work with one-on-one since Comrades. And I almost wanted to go that route with you to say, like, if somebody's listening to this, what's the way to approach a debrief of a race of Comrades' magnitude? And you can do this for any race. If it's your A race of a year, is how do you approach, like, was it a success? What worked? What didn't? That sort of thing.
Yeah, look, and I typically won't go into quite the same detail that I'm going to go with you, Brad, but that's because I will intimately know a lot of the preparation stuff. So I do want to go into your preparation too, and not just make this about the day itself.
Mm.
And yeah, so normally when I'm working with people, I've got a fair idea of what we did and why we went for the target we went for. So yeah, look, I want to dig back to as far back as October last year, when you qualified for Comrades. I can't remember if we knew that it was sub 5 at that point, but it wasn't too long after that we then knew that you didn't need to run a sub 5. So before we raced another marathon, we knew that you didn't have to get faster than that. And so that's kind of where I want to pick this up at, is that now we know you've qualified. So certainly by January, we knew. And now we are building you up towards race day. And I think one of the things that nobody knows is that in this build up, so tell us, how many marathons did you run? How many ultras? And how did they go? I mean, I think that's really key to where I kind of want to go with this.
Yeah, Linz, it's interesting you talk about the Cape Town Marathon. So the goal at Cape Town last year was to qualify for Comrades, and it was still a 4:50 qualifying time at the time. So I knew I was going to be tight for 4:50, and I was going. I mean, the training was amazing. I had a great build up to Cape Town. I felt good. Like everything was pointing towards probably like a 4:45. That's where we were looking towards. And then on race day, I probably went out a little bit too quick and ended up missing 4:50, and then faded quite badly. Especially on that last little death loop through Sea Point. It was horrible. And with about a K to go, I just decided, you know what? I haven't come here not to qualify for 2 Oceans. So I've missed the Comrades qualifier and I want to run Oceans. So I just put my head down and ran the last K as hard as I could. And I ended up running a 4:58 and some change. And I was pretty broken after Cape Town last year, like physically, just really sore, tired, and that sort of thing. But I'd qualified for Oceans and I was chuffed. And then the plan was to go and run Peninsula, which would be my qualifier for Comrades. The plan was to run a 4:50, go on and run Oceans, and then we'd see what would happen from there. But before I ran Peninsula, obviously Comrades changed the qualifying criteria back to 5, so the Comrades qualifier was in the bag. Skipping on to February, I ended up running Peninsula, but for anybody who ran this year would know that it was super, super windy. And my wife was trying to qualify for 2 Oceans, and I ran the first little bit with her coming out of the city, and it was just so windy that I knew straight away all bets were off. She was really struggling with the wind, and I just decided, you know what, it's not even worth pushing for close to sub 5, take your foot off the gas, and I had a really good run. Like, second half, I felt really, really strong. I didn't come in anywhere close to 5 hours, to be honest. I think I probably ran about I'd have to go back and check, but I think I probably ran about a 5:15 at Peninsula, but felt good at the end. I was tired, but I finished really, really strong. Then I went and ran Oceans, and we've spoken about Oceans briefly on the podcast. I ended up missing the cutoff by just over a minute. Had a fairly decentish run, but I finished. I don't want to say I finished really, really strong. I had a strong stretch from the top of Constantia Neck, and then faded a bit closer to the finish. But yeah, I ran a 7:31 and some change, and then I ended up doing False Bay Ultra. So I ran 2 ultras, 1 marathon in the build-up to Comrades. False Bay was an interesting one because you and I chatted about it in the build-up, and was it a good idea? Was it not a good idea running 50Ks first weekend in May? your opinion, it wasn't a great idea, but if I ran it super easy at Comrades race pace, which was 8 minutes a K, then it would be worthwhile. And that's exactly what I did. I think we set the target at 6:33 to run False Bay Ultra, and I ended up running a 6:34. So I was like bang on pace. And it was a good confidence builder because I hadn't really run another race. Obviously, Oceans, the intensity is higher than or the pace is higher than Comrades pace, but I was broken after 2 Oceans. I had big blisters under my feet, whereas False Bay Ultra, I got out of it totally unscathed, legs felt great, and that was a big confidence builder heading into Comrades. But that was it. 1 marathon, 2 ultras, and I think total volume-wise from the 1st of January, I think I did 950. I hit 1,000 Ks on Comrades race day.
Yeah, so now that's significant because it's also what I want to touch on then is because each one of these efforts, even the ones where you felt strong, Peninsula and finished strong at Oceans, even those they always cost you. And so, yeah, just talk to us because it was never plain sailing. How did you manage yourself after each of those efforts? How much running did you miss? And how did you keep yourself fit through those patches of not running? Because that's one of the things that we really struggle to convince people, and I just want them to see, like, we're not robots. We struggle with the same things. So
Yeah.
yeah, just talk us through that little period.
Now, Linz, I think it's also important to add just the whole build up too. One thing I did do is I cycled all the way through. So I did quite a bit of cycling. I think I did, I'll have to check, but I think I did close to 1,600 kilometers of cycling from the 1st of January to Comrades. But in the last sort of like 4 weeks, I didn't do any cycling because I was just nervous. It was getting dark and I didn't want to have an accident on the bike that would ruin my Comrades. So I just took the decision that I wasn't going to cycle anymore. So after Peninsula, I don't think I took too much time off, to be honest. I probably took a few days off, maybe a week, and then picked it up. After 2 Oceans, I was forced to take probably about almost 2 weeks off of running. And that was because I had 2 massive blisters on the balls of my feet. But what I did do is I cycled. So I probably took a week off totally of not doing anything and then got back on the bike the following week. And then a week after that, I was cycling. After False Bay Ultra, I didn't take much time off, to be honest. I probably took a few days, like no running, no exercise at all. And then got straight back into it. Not massive amounts of mileage. It was pretty chilled from there towards Comrades. Couple of longer runs, and then it was the taper. But yeah, lots of recovery built in there without a doubt. With regards to the rest of the build up, I'll take this on the chin. We talk about the importance of strength training. Man, I was horrendous when it came to my strength training. I'm like most people, I don't like it, and yeah, I definitely need to do more, and I'll take that on the chin. It was just, yeah, I just didn't do it.
Yeah. So you did 1,500 k's of cycling, just by the
Okay,
way.
very good.
Just went in and checked. So it's a good number. But yeah, I just really wanted people to see that you didn't have the perfect build up. You did do some strength, but not nearly enough. And that could have potentially made things a little bit easier for you on race day for sure. But the important thing for me is that there was nothing perfect about your build up. You were super consistent, and when you couldn't run, you cycled, which is great. But you had these periods that you were forced to miss out on training just purely because you're recovering from another big effort, and it was far from ideal in that besides False Bay, none of the other runs were really confidence boosters. And so before we tuck straight into the race, that's what I want to really ask you, is because I mean you were certainly never overconfident, but you were always pretty confident you were going to finish Comrades. And how did you hold on to that confidence despite literally only having False Bay as that truly positive number that, or not even number, because it was basically just on Comrades
Mm.
finishing pace, but you obviously felt pretty good there, and that was it. Outside of that, nothing really to build your confidence besides the fact that you did get to 900k. Sorry, that was the last point I wanted to make. That in a far from ideal build-up, you still got to almost 1,000 kilometers of running,
Mm.
and then you easily compensated for the 100 kilometers that you could have maybe run more, risked an injury by doing the cycling. And so yeah, with all of that playing, how did you how were you confident enough to do it?
If you're over 50 and want to recover from sessions faster, run pain and injury free, and improve your endurance, then be sure to join Lindsay and I for our upcoming Faster Beyond 50 Masterclass. In it, we'll show you how we helped a 70-year-old run a 47-minute, 18-second 10K and how you can take those exact same principles and apply them in your training. Simply scan the QR code that's on screen right now or click on the link in the description below to save your seat in the training now. We look forward to seeing you there. Yeah, Linz, it's funny. I didn't feel confident going in at all. I mean, I definitely wasn't going in there cocky saying I was going to cruise this thing. I was very, very worried, to be honest, particularly the last few weeks in the build-up. And I think everybody feels like this. You feel like you haven't done enough. You always think back, geez, I could have done this better. I could have done that better. And it's been so long since I ran my last Comrades that I wasn't sure what to expect, and I wasn't sure I'd had enough. So what I basically did is I went back in my Garmin stats, and I went to go look at the previous Comrades I'd run in 2012, 2013. And it was amazing. I'd done almost exactly the same amount of mileage. And I was like, okay, then like there's no reason for me to doubt that I've done the work. Now it's just a case of, yes, I'm 12 years older and I just need to go and execute on race day. So that really did put me at ease. And I think that's difficult for a novice because as a novice, you don't know that. But I did have that track record and that really did put me at ease. On race, like the week of race day, we had a stand at the expo. The weekend was super busy. I worked on Thursday, and I just want to say to everybody as well who came and said, how's it? Thank you very much. And I need to just say this too for poor Devlin on our team, who got endless flack like the whole weekend.
We should have had Dev doing this interview. Could you imagine how confused people would be?
Okay, so Devlin, I don't see it, but apparently Devlin and I look very much alike, all right? So Devlin has a beard. I've got a bit of stubble. Like, we two totally different people. People think we're the same person. So Devlin was at the expo on Friday and Saturday all day, and literally every second person gave him absolute grief that the poor guy was on his feet at the expo, and why wasn't he at home resting ahead of race day?
Brad, the whole day on the side of the road, runners would go past and go, oh, Brad, what happened? What are you doing here? So we should have had Dev. We should have had Dev interviewing you, and it would have blown their minds. Yeah.
So we are two different people, right? So what I was saying is the expo was busy. I was there on Thursday, and I was probably there a little bit longer than I should have. I said I'd be there from lunchtime. I did get a lot of flack on Thursday afternoon, but after Thursday, I was out. That was it, me done. There were one or two things we had to take care of work-wise outside of that, but I had to drop stuff off at the expo. I was given strict instructions. I wasn't allowed to go into the expo. People were meeting me outside to get stuff. It was like these incognito drug drops that we were doing outside. That's what it felt like. Nobody could see me. And then Saturday was pretty busy too. We got halfway to Pietermaritzburg. I don't know if I told you this, Linz. We got halfway to Pietermaritzburg and realized that I had the Airbnb keys in my car, and we had to turn around and come back to Durban to drop the keys off. So it was just really, really busy. So by the time I got to Pietermaritzburg and into a hotel room, it had flown by. So I hadn't actually given the race too much thought. I mean, Saturday night, I was sitting looking at maps going, how do I get to the start? So I had, like, none of that was planned until the night before. So I didn't give it much thought. And I think maybe that also helped. Like, I didn't get into my own head. I didn't have time to. So that it was like, when I started thinking about it, it was time to sleep, and then it was race day, which I think maybe helped a bit. That it took my mind off it. And yeah, I didn't give it too much thought. I knew what I needed to do from a pacing strategy perspective on race day, and then that was it.
Yeah, so I mean, then look, let's tackle the race. Yeah, I mean, you started in the front of Group 2, and so we've kind of already spoken at the aches and pains again around the fact that you attributed the two-wave starts and the cutoffs. And so yeah, I want you to pull the splits up, and I want to actually point out a couple of things. So when you ran last 12 years ago, you and this is I mean, we'll do the year that you didn't finish, to be honest, because that's the best comparison. It was your first Comrades. This was a little bit like your first Comrades. But that first year, and what inspired you to do the charity batch is that first year, it took you almost 12 minutes to get across the start line.
Yeah.
And even when you did the charity batch, the CC batch, it took you almost 3 minutes to cross the line. Okay.
Correct.
So if we look at those two races, 12 minutes and 3 minutes, and before we get into how you were feeling, if we analyze that, you would have, this year versus, okay, the cutoffs were totally different this year, but we looked at two things so that people can understand why Brad attributes finishing Comrades to the two-start system and also to the, not the change in the cutoffs. Is on the previous system, Brad lost 2.5 minutes. Let's call it 3, round up to 3, and he lost, let's say, 10. So we'll be more conservative, maybe not quite 12, but 10 minutes to get across the line. Now, this, Comrades, 2025, if we use the old cutoffs, you made it through the 30K cutoff at Cato Ridge with no problem. Breezed through there. You did 406 and cutoff traditionally was 420. Okay. So if we add on your 10 minutes there in your first year, you're already feeling uncomfortable. And this is really the point that I want to make is so you wouldn't have been cut off then, but this time you had absolutely no concern about it. And last time it would have already been playing on your mind. The halfway cutoff was 610. You did 602 this
I was
year.
done.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it took you less than 30 seconds to get across the line. Okay. So running your own race, it was 602. So now at when you did when you actually finished, you would have been cut off at halfway. At 3 minutes, you would have had to make that up. So you would have been either you would have been cut off or you would have been forced to run harder than you want to run to
Which,
get there.
Lindsay, if I can jump in there, is exactly what happened in my first Comrades in 2010.
That's where I was going. Because if we go into your first Comrades in 2010 and you lost 10 minutes to get over the line, then you have missed cutoff. So in
Yep.
your first Comrades, exactly what you did
Yep.
is you hammered down so that you could get in
Yep.
on time. Okay. Then at the 60 or just shy of 60 at the Winston Park cutoff, you went through there in 7:53. Cutoff was 8 hours. So again, your first Comrades, you were in trouble of making that cutoff without this two start
That was where I was
and
cut
with
off.
charity batch. Well, there we go.
Yep.
And this year at 7:53, you were again you would have been thinking about it. So 7 minutes it's safe, but it's like you would have looked at your watch and looked and gone, geez, I'm starting to cut these things fine. And then this is the very interesting one, is that cutoff at Cowie's was is traditionally 9:20. You did 9:19:35 this year. So you would have never made it there in previous years. You wouldn't
Mm.
even have made it there. But in previous years, could you imagine the adrenaline and the fatigue that would come after making it through by 25 seconds and
Yep.
the stress that would have caused in your life? And then again, at the final cutoff was you went through in 10:56. Traditional cutoff is 11. So again, you would have struggled to make 3 out of the 5 cutoffs in previous years. And I think that's very important in terms of what I want to jump into next, is that you could pace yourself how you needed to pace yourself, not on a foreign plan that had been forced onto you, number one. And number two, there was a lot of pressure taken off you by not losing time at the start.
Yep. Yeah, Lindsay,
So
I couldn't.
before we jump into your race, I want to quickly touch on one other thing quickly, and that is the 5-hour cutoff.
Mm.
Because obviously the 450 cutoff is very difficult. Okay.
This is on a marathon qualifier.
Yes. Yes. On a marathon, 450 on a marathon to qualify for Comrades, if we had to do it, we may have gotten there. But the reality is that 450 qualifier is very difficult. So you wouldn't have been here if it wasn't for the 5-hour qualifier. Okay. Now the finishing stats have just come out. Okay. And the comparison has been made between the 2018 Comrades and the 2025 Comrades, and how the finishing stats are so similar. So therefore, this year's conditions were not as tough as everyone's thinking. Now, I'm going to counter that argument and say this, okay? Firstly, that finishing Comrades between 450 and 5 is hard, okay? So I'm glad more people get an opportunity to try. But the one thing that was right about those previous things is that 450 is probably your sort of should finish Comrades. So your sub 450 should finish Comrades. Your 450 to 5 can finish Comrades. So I certainly don't want to paint the picture here that they should change the qualifying criteria, okay? But it remains incredibly hard to finish. So I think that's the one thing the stats show. But what they don't take into account is the weather, and that if we look at the 2-tier start, which has taken the time to cross the mat down from 12 minutes to 6 minutes. If we factor that in, 6 minutes is a ton. 6 minutes is 1,000 people. 1,000 people. I mean, again, anyone's welcome to check my stats and come back at me with real numbers. But 6 minutes is a lot of people. So that 6 minutes that people scored, that got a lot of people over the finish line. Okay. And then the cutoffs, back to what we were talking about and what we're going to jump into now with you, the cutoffs also meant that a ton of people that would have been cut off before finished the race. Okay. So when we combine those two factors, well done to Comrades for making the change. But I just want everyone to be clear that this year's conditions were tough and more people would have way less people would have finished if we didn't have two starts. That I'm willing to stake a big bet on. And if we can if for the 100th, if we can also just have a kilometer less to run and get back to the more traditional 89.2, we'll have even another 1,000 people finishing. Okay, so Brad, back to your race. Now that we've just taken that marathon, the position that you were in, the fine line between success and failure, and now tell us, what was your strategy? How did it unfold? And how close to how you imagined it did it go?
So Lindsay, it was pretty close to what I'd planned, to be honest. And it's funny if I compare. So this was the third down run that I've run. Obviously, my first one was an attempt and I failed. And it was so funny as you were doing the math on those cutoffs that I missed it at Winston Park. And it was exactly as you explained it played out. I smashed it down in Chunga into Drummond, made that cutoff by the skin of my teeth, and then missed the next one at Winston Park. So that's exactly what happened. Then the next one, I was in pretty good shape. And I ended up running a 10:39. I think that was my last down run time. But 10:39 looks great on paper. I can tell you I was not in control of that 10:39. Like in hindsight, I haven't gone back and looked at it, but I can tell you now, just knowing how I felt on Sunday, compared to that one, I went out way too fast on that one and just hung on for dear life. So I remember, and I always joke about it, I remember that one, I was on track to go under 10:30 with 10 Ks to go. So I was trying to do the maths. I had 70 minutes to do 10 Ks and I couldn't figure out how many minutes per K I had to run for the last 10 Ks. And then I ended up running a 10:39. So that's how the wheels came off on that one. But then on Sunday, the plan, and I think I did it 2 weeks before race day, I said, my plan is to run a negative split. I know a lot of people are convinced that negative splits aren't possible. I know you're a huge advocate and you've got tons of athletes that have, and over the years, more and more people have run negative splits. And I wanted to run a negative split because I just thought, you know what? It's going to be my best chance of finishing Comrades is if I go out easy enough in that first 30 up to halfway and then make up some time on the downs when if you are able to run in the final third. And that's exactly what I did, Linz. I think I went through halfway. I looked at my times earlier, I don't know if you had a proper look, but I think it was.
You went through in 6:02, went through
Yeah.
halfway in 6:02. 6:02 50 something. So call it 6:03.
Yeah, so that was the plan, was to go through, and it's funny, I'm holding it here. So obviously we had printed pacing bands at the expo. My eyes are so bad, I get one of those and then I make my own one that I can see. It's for the visually impaired, much bigger writing, and I had it, and I'm looking at it now. And on this one, halfway I had two. I had the 11:45 and I had the 11:59:12. That was the two pacing bands. On the 11:45, it was 11:50. 6:50. 5:57, just under 5:57 for halfway. And on the 11:59, it was 6:04. So I was just under where I needed to be. And then, yeah, I mean, the pressure was definitely on, Linz. I'm not going to deny it. I mean, from basically, I took it super easy from Drummond, because and again, that was probably one part of the Comrades route that I had really worked through in my mind. I remember the route run through that you did a few weeks back, where you spoke about the 3 bumps as you come out of halfway. I actually went back and listened to that podcast again. I think I listened to it another 2 or 3 times just to get it clear in my head what that stretch of route, because that was where my wheels came off in 2010. So I wanted to make sure that I knew exactly what was coming. And I know everybody struggled there. I actually felt really good because I knew what was coming. Like, it was, once I got to the top of the third one, I was like, oh, was that the third one? That's how I felt. I was like, oh, that was the third one. That's cool. It's done. And then I knew from there I really needed to start motoring. So I didn't smash it down Bothas. I didn't smash it down Fields. But one thing that did happen, and I think this is probably also very important to let people know, is the 12-hour bus came past me super early, like super, super, super early. It was probably going up in Changa, and I managed to stay with them down to Drummond. They were just ahead of me, and they'd pull away a bit because they're a bit faster on the downs, and then I'd catch them on the ups. And those 3 bumps, I managed to close the gap a little bit, and then they pulled away, closed the gap. And by the time we got to Bothas Hill, they were just ahead of me. And when I got to the top and started going down, they were gone. Never saw them again for the rest of the day. And again, I think experience plays such a big part in this race, Linz. Like, when things happen, especially when they happen for a second or third time, you start realizing this is normal and it's okay to feel like this. And the same thing happened in my first Comrades. The 12-hour bus came past me, and just psychologically, that broke me. I was like, that's it. My race is done. And it was also, on that day, it was super early. And I think a lot of people feel that way. When the 12-hour bus comes past, they think that's it. What I can tell you is the 12-hour bus is not being run by the fat lady, and she's not singing. So when the 12-hour bus comes past, it's not over. You've got to run your own race. And it does, I guess this probably applies, Linz. I don't know. I've never run a super fast Comrades, but I'm guessing this applies for all medals. You've got to run the race that you have to run. Everybody's slightly different pacing strategies, the way you run ups, the way you run downs. For me, those buses go way too fast on the downs, and they don't go fast enough on the ups. So I lose time on the ups if I stay with them, and then I hurt myself on the downs trying to keep up with them. So I just know I've got to run my own race. And I didn't panic. I was like, you know what, let them go. I'm sure I'll see them again later. And I didn't. I didn't see a flag again all day. And that's fine. I think you've just got to be okay with going, you know what, I'm on my own and I'm going to make this happen.
Yeah, and look, the one thing that we were getting feedback, obviously from the app, but we were getting good feedback from friends and people that we knew along the way. One of Campbell sent me a thing and said, just seen Brad at Everton Road. He's can't use his language, but basically you were looking great. And then when you got to us at 14 Ks to go, your legs were sore. You said they were sore, but really you were looking great and you were sounding great. And standing at that spot at 15 Ks, there were a lot of people that came through us, and there was nobody who wasn't sore, but there were a lot of people that were sounding good and a lot of people that were sounding ropey, disorientated. And I think that's really the difference, is that you had the patience and the bravery that you have gained from experience to just know that you, and I think I often tell people this, but I think this will actually resonate with you. I often tell people when I'm going for a time and they go, are you running fast enough? Are we going to do it? And I always say to them, I'm not 100% sure we're going to do it, but this is the only way I can do it. And by that, I mean, if I go any faster than I'm going now, I guarantee I won't do it.
Mm.
And I think that's kind of sums up, is that you have to have that kind of, you may not have finished. I mean, you only made it by 1 second. So there's no gloating here and told you so's or any of that nonsense. You could have as easily not made it as you did make it. But when you look back, this is the only way that you could make it. And so when you borderline, and that's why I wanted to take it back to this 5-hour story, is that when you borderline, you've got to risk not making it to give yourself a chance of making it, because if you do it any other way, then you definitely won't finish. That's really what I wanted to do. So we get to 14 Ks to go, Brad, and I can see that you've got full faculties there. You're still eating, by the way. So you had a banana and you were chewing a banana. So you're still taking in solids. You were keeping yourself cool. And even though you said you didn't experience it as a particularly hot day, having witnessed a bit of your run from there on in, you did a really great job of grabbing the coldest sachets available and really just keeping yourself cool and wet. So you get there, you've got your full faculty, your legs are sore, and you know it's on the line. You kind of know that from that point on, I work it out for you using a calculator, and you've got to average 7:48 from there all the way to the finish line. So now, how do you do that? Like talk us through the headspace. Like, what kept you hanging in? What kept you believing that you could do it? Like, what are the tricks that you kind of use to keep yourself motivated, knowing that like you are under pressure every kilometer?
Yes, Linz, I actually don't even know, to be honest. One thing that did keep coming back to me, and I've thought about it in hindsight too, is obviously we speak to a lot of people at the expo about race strategies and what to do and that sort of thing. And it just kept coming back to me. Like I've told so many people this, that if you can get to the top of Cowie's Hill and are able to run, you don't have to run fast, you just need to be able to run, you can make up time. So I had that in my head that I just need to be able to run, and I felt good enough to run. I mean, I ran. One thing I'm probably most proud of my comrades is the way I ran in that last third. I struggled on the ups, and I think everybody did because we were super fatigued. And I think there were probably a couple of factors that played into that, probably the lack of strength, carrying a bit of extra weight. But on the downs, I ran so well. Like, I'm just so stoked with the way I was able to run. And for long stretches, it wasn't that I had to run 500 meters and then take a walk. Like, I could run a couple of Ks without taking a walk at that stage on the long downs. So I think that played into my mind a hell of a lot as well. And I actually don't know what kept me going, to be honest. Like, there wasn't that I was thinking of someone and I really wanted to get this finish. I just fought, and it was, it's weird. I can't put my finger if it was on one thing, or I just was in for the fight, which was cool. And then, as we said on the breakdown last week, like, I gave up with 4Ks to go. I was like, there's no ways I can do this. So it's not like it was smooth sailing. I mean, I was hurting. And then obviously you gave me a bit of a pep talk and put my head down and went for the last little bit.
Yeah, look, and I want to just quickly share these last splits with the people, because I think that sums up exactly what you said now, is that there were stretches where you probably started to feel like you were going to do it, and then you would get knocked back again. Like your 75th K, 8:22, 8:51. So I mean, you carried on like that, you weren't going to finish. But then you went 7:18, 7:33, 7:25, 7:36. So you like looking great guns, but then you hit 45th cutting 9:01. Then you've probably got so many positive vibes, and then they sucked away from you. And then 7:19, 7:30, 9:24 at 84 kilometers, and then you smashed a 6:43, 7:43. Then this is where I think you just couldn't anymore and felt like you'd done it and you weren't going to do it. 9:08, and then 8:30, um 8:32 and 6:39. And then like, I mean, I can't believe I haven't tuned you about this yet. And then you did 150 meters in 21 minutes, because it's not important to stop your stopwatch or anything when you get to the end of Comrades. um but but this is the thing. I think it's a roller coaster. It's like you had, and back to our point that we're always trying to make, is if you are running what you need to run.
Hmm.
All the Ks you ran, you were well under the 8 minutes a K you need, or the 7:49 you needed from when I saw you at 14 Ks. But obviously, you went through a few moments where it was like, I can't, or you hit a 45th cutting, or you hit a bridge, and there was a 9 minutes. And then when you get that 9 minutes, it's very easy to just go, oh, well, I didn't do my 7:49, so I've blown it. But no, it's because you were doing 7:30s and 7:40s and even a 6 whatever, two sub 7 minutes in there. And so you've just got to keep yourself running. I think that's the most important thing. um yeah, look, I mean, but I don't want to overplay the two conversations that we had at like 6-ish Ks and 2 Ks to go, because you got yourself close enough there. And yes, it was nice to have someone there to almost, I don't know, reaffirm your thoughts or whatever. But I don't want to overplay the role there. You got yourself to that point, and I think at somewhere between 6 and 4, because there were no kilometer markings. Between 6 and 2, there were no kilometer markings, and actually, I think that made it harder. I think if you were seeing Ks coming, it may have made it easier. If you'd seen, like, even though your legs were broken, I think if you'd seen 5 Ks and it had been another 7:30, and if you know what I mean, like that, so that made it harder for you. But I think we had two like really important conversations just in the scheme of the whole day you'd had. And one of those was that even when I think it was at the McDonald's or just before the McDonald's, when you where you came to where I was, you were like, I actually just can't anymore. My legs are going to buckle underneath me. But you, in the same breath, said to me, but don't worry, I'm going to keep going because I'm still determined to run a negative split. Okay. So you kept yourself going, which is crucial, because you could have sat down and then it definitely would have been over. And then, of course, there was that quick maths at the 2Ks to go. You realized you had a chance if you went for it, and you went for it and you made it. Awesome. Um, Yeah, so I think really, sorry, that a lot of words that I just wanted to use there, that I think what's really key here is that in those moments that you described where you were low and you didn't think you were going to make it, you found a way to just keep going, one foot in front of the other. You didn't stop. You didn't waste time. You didn't get to a water station and go, well, I'm not going to make it anyway, so now I'm going to dip my head in a bucket of ice water and I'm going to you kept going. And I think if there's ever a kind of message to sum up this whole process for me, is like, through the training, through the qualifying, through the races that you didn't go as planned, through the whole day at Comrades, is you just kept going. You never stopped. You never stopped trying. You didn't always believe, but even when you weren't believing, you were still trying and you were still going. And I think that fact is actually what got Brad Nadal to the finish under 12 hours.
Hmm. Yeah, Linz. Yeah, I appreciate that big time, and I think also going into Comrades, more than anything, I was just stoked to be back. Like I didn't have, like, yes, I don't think anybody starts Comrades not wanting to finish. So don't take this the wrong way. But for me, standing on the start line was the win. And I think I wish more people would feel that way about Comrades, because, geez, getting to the start of Comrades is bloody hard. Like, there's just so many sacrifices. There's tons that you have to do to get to the start, and I don't think we celebrate that fact enough. And obviously, we all do want to finish. So I would have been disappointed if I was on the other side of the 12, but it wouldn't have broken me as much as it did in 2010. I think that's probably the point I want to make.
Yeah.
And I think when you go into something like that, where you haven't put so much pressure on yourself to finish this thing in a certain time, it takes pressure off. And I mean, we were talking about the cutoffs and not having that weighing on you. Pressure, I don't think people understand the amount of energy that pressure takes on you. And it's not in professional sport, but for the average person, when you're putting so much pressure on you, the emotional toll, the stress, that's all energy that you could be putting into your running, but you are fighting this all the way. So that's one of the reasons why I loved that the cutoffs didn't come into play, other than the last one, obviously, for me. But because I didn't think about it. I genuinely did not think. I didn't even know what the cutoff times were. And that's how far from my head they were. And it makes such a big difference when you don't have massive amounts of pressure on you.
Yeah. No, so that was cool. And again, that's why I think the 5 hour and I think the cutoffs, these are things that need to stay. But I think for me, the lessons that we can learn out of your training is that you just need to be consistent. So it's not about doing massive training all the time over a long period of time. It's about being consistent for a very long time.
Mm.
It's about adapting when you need to. And it's not about being perfect. Sorry, that's what I wanted to say. Yours wasn't perfect. You didn't do your strength training. So it's not about being perfect. It really is about being consistent. It's about acknowledging when your body needs to take a break. It's about substituting running, particularly for the back of the packers, particularly for the bigger runners. It's substitute some of your running for cycling, 100%. And then dude, it's a hard day. So just know that if you are between 450 and 5, you are miles away from guaranteed at doing this. Raising money for charity going to make a massive difference to you, because that 6 minutes is so big in your life, and it was so big in your life this time around. um, and just flipping don't stop moving. I mean, I don't know how I give that big 20-minute spiel about how saving 20 minutes, but in reality, it's not about saving minutes. It's about not losing any minutes.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think those are like really the key things that I can take out of your training and your experience. Yeah, and then I think for with that all in mind, for our next Comrades, we have to get you under 450 for the marathon. Turn you into at least an 11:30 Comrades runner. But you can't give up, and it's hard. I mean, I witnessed it. I saw it firsthand. I cheered for so many people. So many people said to me in that last 15K as I was running down to the end, so many people saw me and said, "Coach, am I going to finish?" And I couldn't say to any of them yes, but I couldn't say no either. I just had to. My answer was the same to all of them. You can finish, but you can't stop running. And
Yep.
that is a lot of pressure, to your point, Brad. And so that's the kind of pressure you only want at the end. You don't want that pressure all the way down the course with a halfway cutoff and a this cutoff and a that cutoff. So,
Yep.
yeah, I think
Absolutely.
that's, for me, those are all the kind of real nuggets people should take out of your journey.
And then, Linz, one thing, like if somebody's listening to this, because I've got one question for you from a nutrition point of view. Like I really did struggle with my nutrition. I'll explain to you what happened. But what's the best way? Is it a case of like in the next week or so, like just sit down with a pen and paper and jot down what worked? Why do you think it worked? What went wrong? Why do you think it went wrong? Like how do you analyze this for yourself so that you can take the lessons next year and do more of
Yeah,
what worked
100,
and do less of what didn't?
100%. So the two aspects that I focus on when we're talking is having a look at how close we were to the race plan, how close do we get to executing, and how did it work out. So that's positive and negative. So someone may have stuck to the race plan perfectly, but it was a total disaster of a result. And then we'll unpack some training stuff, how they were feeling going into the race, and we'll 100% unpack nutrition, or if somebody's pacing really was out the window. Yeah, and what did we do for nutrition? How close was it to what we practiced? Did it get to a point where that was just a cuck idea and you couldn't take it in? Did you get sick, or did you get lazy, or so all of those things get unpacked, and of course then I also compare it to the environmental conditions, and I go through runners that I know well, have a look at how they performed. I look at the leaders, like for example, in this year's race from 60 Ks, there are only 4 athletes that improved and I'm talking now in the elite part of the race. Only 4 athletes that improved their predicted finishing time in the last 30 Ks. And that was the first 2 men and the first 2 women.
Wow.
Everyone else slowed down significantly on their predicted time from that point. They didn't even hold. They slowed down on their predicted time. So then I take that stuff in and I have a look and I go, okay, and then how does that play into the rest of the field? I look at my best athletes. I look at the athletes that they are normally in and around, and I see how did they compare to each other. Oh, they were also much lower. So then I can go, right, guys, this year's just the weather alone this year for the front runners was probably worth 5 to 7 minutes. The silver medalists, like 7 to 10 minutes. And kind of as you go back in the field, that balloons. And then we get to the poor people who are on the 12-hour, they can't afford any balloon. So everybody who ran a 5-hour marathon and who finished actually outperformed the rest of the field by 5 to 15 minutes. So yeah, so that just sorry, I got stuck in the weeds again there, but that's kind of how I'll look at it. So I see how my people did versus what we wanted them to do versus the plan that we set out for them. Have a look at what role nutrition played. Have a look at what role the weather played, if any, and to figure that out, I then look at how did the rest of the field perform so that I can give an objective view and not just blow wind up their backsides to find an excuse to, you know, to not blame the training. And sometimes I look at all that stuff and it's like we did something wrong in the preparation. So
Mm.
how are we going to fix that?
Okay, cool. Linz, my question on the nutrition side of things. So I obviously had changed gels in the build up to this one, and I had taken pretty much what I had done for Oceans and False by Ultra, and I just got probably, I'm trying to think how far it was, just after halfway, and I was just so sick and tired of gels already. I was like, this is, I'm done. And I felt like I needed like food. Like and I was just thinking about it, and I was like comparing while I was running, I was thinking about my Ironmans and like the sort of stuff I'd use on Ironmans. And I just don't think I ate enough in the first half. And then I literally went off the gels in the second half and just ate anything I could get my hands on. So oranges, nachos, bananas, I actually got my wife at 51 Ks to make. I phoned her and I said, please, I need a Future Life shake. She made me a Future Life shake. Got that down. And then she actually had another one. I saw her just before I think we crossed over in Westville when I saw you. She had a second one for me, and I downed a second one just as I got to you as well. So, and I think that made a big difference. And I think I probably need to start eating more solid food earlier on. I don't know if that would be the
Yeah.
way to do it.
And again, at the back of the pack, I would absolutely agree with that because you were so, yeah. I mean, you're on the road for so long. Like if you went and sat on a couch and did no exercise and ate gels watching movies, I think you'd eventually be like, nah, I'm not doing this anymore. So I think honestly that is a really good piece of advice from your side of the experience. And that means practicing with that solid stuff. Um, in the build up. Yeah, but I think that is really good advice. Much more reliance on solid stuff rather than just endless sugar and gels.
Yeah, because Linz, I think of it this way: like if you wake up, and I said this to someone at the running club last night. We had a bit of a do, and I said to someone last night, like if you had to wake up, I said to them, "What time did you wake up for Comrades?" They said they were up at 2 o'clock. I said, "Okay," and then what time did you eat breakfast? They said 3 o'clock. So I said, just imagine if you woke up on a normal day, not a Comrades day. You woke up at 2 o'clock, ate breakfast at 3 o'clock, and then ate nothing again until 6 o'clock. So
Yeah,
no exercise or anything.
100%.
How horrible are you going to feel? And now add that you have to run 90 Ks. Like I don't think people
Yeah,
realize like how much they need to eat. Like whether you like it or not, you have to eat.
yeah. No, I agree 100%. And look, I think Future Life's probably a good middle ground, but I think solid food also. Sandwiches are probably just a fantastic idea, and you've just got to practice that on some of your longer runs.
Yeah, and let me tell you, Linz, I love a good salty cracks cracker at the best of times.
Mm,
I
mm.
had one on race day, and I might as well have been eating sawdust. I'm telling you, couldn't get it down. It was horrendous. It was I don't know. I saw them on the course again. I was like, keep those things away from me. It was the
It's
hardest
it's
thing I've.
it's okay to do cement mixer, hey? It's okay to have
That didn't
bites
even help.
of bites of salty crack, squirt of water, eh?
That didn't even help.
That's acceptable.
It was genuinely, I thought I was eating sawdust. I was like, this is just not good. So yeah, I figured out on Comrades race day that salty cracks don't work for me. Doesn't matter what time of the month it is. Linz, thank you. That is super, super
Cool.
helpful. And yeah, I also just want to say thank you to everyone. I mean, the amount of people that were out on the course, like spectators supporting, not just me, but everyone. I mean, I know a lot of people recognize me from these podcasts, but the support was absolutely incredible from start to finish. The amount of runners, also just words of encouragement. Thank you. I don't know how many selfies were taken. Also, there were times, and I need to apologize too, because there were times where I was proper grumpy and I was probably super rude when I was going deep in a hole and people wanted to chat and I just was not chatty. So apologies to you if I was rude to you on race day. It wasn't on purpose. I was just trying to stay alive. And then also, Linz, to the Coach Barry team. It was so lucky seeing you guys out there and the support. And I know I speak for a lot of people because I've been on the side of the road and I've seen how appreciative people are. And now that I've experienced it, yeah, thanks to you guys. Yeah, I know the runners absolutely love seeing you and the rest of the team out on race day.
Big pleasure. It was awesome to be a part of it. Personally, I'm very happy that you were the right 1 second the right side of the 12 hours. And it's a cool story that we'll be able to tell for many, many years. So well done.
Yeah, and if I can just add, it was not planned. Just so that people know, we have been asked this lot. Did we plan it? The short answer is no. If we were going to plan it, we would have given me a little bit more breathing room. Let me tell you, that is for sure. It was very stressful.
Yes, it was very stressful. I didn't, and for anyone who's, I didn't know if Brad had made it because I was probably about 400 meters from the finish and I was blinded by the lights. So yeah, I just didn't know he'd finished until eventually the app. Well, in fact, the app didn't even update. Eventually, I messaged my wife hoping she was at the finish line, and she did. She happened to be there, and she said, "Yes, he made it by 1 second."
Awesome. Linz, thank you very much. We'll chat again
Cool.
next week. Take care, everyone. Bye bye.
Cheers.